Hey guys, this is Dion here with your Guitar Academy. So in this lesson, I want to take you through some super common major and minor triad shapes that we're then going to go on and apply to this Motown tune that we've been looking at. So there's a couple of inversions. I'll explain what inversions mean, obviously, but really you're going to come away with kind of 3 major shapes and 3 minor shapes, each with a root note on a different string. Okay, so really kind of useful stuff to know here, taking away and applying it elsewhere other than just learning this tune. So with that said, grab your guitar and let's get going.
Okay then guys, so if you just joined us on this course, then remember that you can get the tab, the backing tracks, the full write-up all over on our website, absolutely free, if you just click the link in the description. As well as that, please do like and comment. We love to hear how you're getting on with the course. And if you have any questions for us, then please go ahead and write them down in the comments and we'll answer every single one of them.
Let me just play through the shapes now for you on kind of one area of the neck and we can just hear what they sound like. So that's essentially 6 triad shapes that we've got there. Okay, so just to start off, let's just talk about what a triad actually is. So it's simply just 3 notes stacked on top of each other. So you have a root note, a third or a flattened third, and a fifth, sometimes a flattened fifth. We haven't got any diminished triads here. So we've only got major and minor triads, which means it's a root third and a fifth, or a root flat third and a fifth. Remember that flat third can also be called minor third sometimes too. The only difference between a major and a minor triad is that third. So you take that third and you flatten it. So the way that I've structured this is that I've given you a triad with a root note either on the G string, the B string, or the E string. Okay, so this is really going to test your and kind of hone your knowledge of the fretboard, as well as giving you some cool little triad shapes to use, within your playing. So let's first have a look at the triads that have their root on the G. Okay, so it's going to be this shape here. So one thing that I think is also very useful is to relate this back to our caged system. So this triad that you see here, so I'm just playing, this is technically speaking, it's a D major triad, okay? And I'll explain why now. So first things first, this is derived, you can kind of see it within this A shape of our cage system, okay? So if we remove that root note, and we just keep just these 3 notes here. So I'm barring my 3rd finger there across the 7th fret of D, G, and B. And the notes that we have here, so we have an A here. So that A, in relation to D, is the 5th, okay? Then we have a note of D, that's our root note. Then we have a note of F sharp. That's going to be our 3rd, okay, in the key of D. And bear in mind, these are all movable. I'm just using this as a kind of, middle of the neck example. If I was to play it here, it's still 5th root 3rd. It's just in the key of C. Here it's still 5th root 3rd. It's just in the key of E. Okay, it's just movable shapes, just using here as an example. So, as I said, so we've got our 5th, our root, and our 3rd. So you'll see, if I wanted to transpose this, so for instance, if I wanted to say, okay, I want to play this triad voicing, but I want to do it in the key of B flat, I'd have to make sure that this middle note here would be a B flat. So you'd have to find a B flat on this G string. So I know that there's one there. So that means I could build this triad around that. That's now a B flat major triad, or you could do it up here, of course. So really this is just relying on you understanding where the root note is within each triad, okay? If you want to get a bit more technical, this would be referred to as a second inversion, okay? Because inversions essentially is when you have a triad in a different order. So you have root position, which is root, 3rd and 5th, starting on the root note, or you could have first inversion, which is starting on the 3rd, or you can have second inversion, which is starting on the 5th. But you see there's still some combination of those 3 notes, okay? For me, I've always just thought more about where the root note is rather than thinking too heavily about this is such inversion, this is that. But just as a bit of knowledge there, this would be technically referred to as a second inversion D major triad. But as I say, just think where the root note is. So in this one, right in the middle there on that G string. Okay, if we want to make this one minor, remember what I said, we have to flatten that third. Okay, so that note on top is the third. Bring that down one, and we get this shape here. So a nice little minor triad, D minor triad. And you'll see this one is kind of closely related to that A minor shape from the cage system. So that's our first two. Okay, and again, with the knowledge that our root note is on the G string there, that will allow us to transpose this triad anywhere we like, okay? And that's some really good thing to kind of test yourself on. So one thing that I like to do is kind of have some notes sort of in a hat or in a box or something, or on a table, and just pick out any possible 12 notes at random and try and find the triad there. So for instance, G flat, okay? There's a G flat there. That would be our G flat major. What about B minor, okay? That's a B there. So I can build a B minor triad off of that. So on and so forth. It's a really useful exercise. Let's talk about the other shapes. So the next shape are going to be, the next two shapes, sorry, should I say, are going to be this one and this one. So these triads have their root note on the B string. Okay, so this one is a kind of little sort of D-shaped triad. Let me do it just for the sake of context. Let's do it from D as well, because we just did these two from D minor. So as I said, the root note has to be on the B string. So that note there is a D. The other two notes, that's our fifth, root note, third. So you see the order of the notes is same as the previous one. It's just we're on a different set of strings now. So this is still a second inversion if you want to look at it in that way. And then to make it minor, you guessed it, we bring that third down, D major, D minor triad. Okay, and you can play it anywhere. It's just being aware that that root note is now on the B string. So for instance, if I want to play this as a G triad, there we go. That's G there, where my third finger is. I want to play it as G minor. To go back to the cage system as well, this can kind of be built off of two of our cage chords. We can either have our D shape, D minor shape, or our C shape as well. You see how this kind of fits in two sort of different caged voicings there. If you want to look at it that way, personally, I like to view triads as just their own kind of entity, their own sort of little mini voicings, but it can be helpful to relate them back to that cage system. So yeah, so far we have this one, root note on the G string, major triad, minor triad, and now root note on the B string, major triad, minor triad. And finally, let's look at one that has its root note on the higher E string. So let's do it from D. Again, so we have this voicing here. So I've got second finger on the 11th fret of G, first finger on the 10th fret of B, and first finger on the 10th fret of E. So I'm barring across there. So this one is stacked slightly differently. So this one starts on this note here. So that note, in relation to D, is our third. Okay, so that would mean, technically speaking, this triad is a first inversion as opposed to a second inversion that we just saw previously. And then we've got this note here, which is our fifth, and then our root note on top. So this is now an option, if you want to play a triad that has a root note on the higher E string, you can use this shape. So for instance, I want to play an F sharp major triad. Okay, that's an F sharp there. There we go, or up here. If I wanted to play it as an A, there's an A there. There we go. And again, that's, using our knowledge of the fretboard to just find these triads in different areas. So again, we have to make this one minor. So remember, we flatten that third, and there we go. Simple as that. So that's our major version, minor version. And this one is actually derived from our E-shaped bar chord from the cage system. Okay, it's just the kind of top of that voicing there, okay? So let's just have a little recap there. So we've got 3 options for each triad. So we have our triad with our root note on the G. That's our major triad, minor triad. We can have a triad with a root note on the B string. So our major triad, minor triad. And we can have a triad with the root note on the high E string. There we go. So bear in mind, these are just a few options. There's like tons of triads out there, you know, like all over the place. You know, everywhere on the guitar. But these are just ones that I use often to play this kind of style of music where, you know, because they got that kind of fun, snappy sound that we're going for, okay? That's just the kind of bulk of it. There's 1 or 2 other little triad shapes that crop up in the piece that we'll look at as we kind of study through it, but the bulk of it are these shapes here. So they're really, really useful ones to know. So I would say a really good exercise for this, what I like to do is kind of challenge myself to grab these shapes quickly. So for instance, I would say, okay, get a kind of a you know, lots of different pieces of paper and 2 different kind of things to pull them out of. And you could say, okay, in one box, you can have B string, G string, or E string. And then you can obviously have minor or major. And then in the other box, you can have all the possible 12 keys. And see if you can pull out, so for instance, B string, meaning a triad with its root note on the B string, and you have to play it as from, I don't know, E flat or something. And then whether or not you do major or minor, you can have another hat. So I would say, okay, B string, triad, root note triad, major, here we go. I know that I can use that shape. If it was minor, I remember I said E flat as well. The point is you're being very kind of spontaneous with the choice. You're not giving yourself, you're not allowing yourself to choose. You're just having to do it quickly, okay? And that's one thing that's just helped me find my way around the neck really quickly. You know, just knowing where all of these root notes are, so on and so forth. So that's just the main exercise for me. And then you could also try and play these triads, you know, with songs that you already know. So a great example is a song, you know, anything kind of strummy, something like Brown Eyed Girl or anything like that, where it's a really standard, you know, simple chord progression. And you can challenge yourself to play it using these different triad voicings. If this is a bit kind of tricky for you now, don't worry, because it'll all become much clearer as we start applying this to our Motown piece in the next unit, okay? So for now, just take your time, get into grips with those shapes. Key thing, just remember where your root notes are and you can't go wrong, okay? So have fun with that, and I'll see you in the next lesson for the A section.
Okay, so that's it from me in this YouTube lesson. I really hope you enjoyed that. Please remember that you can get the next lesson right here, or you can start from the full, you know, right at the beginning of the playlist, right here as well. Along the way, please do make sure to like each lesson, subscribe to our page, and leave a comment. We love hearing from you, and we'll answer every single question that you have.